So apparently, there are several parents in the state of Illinois that has filed a lawsuit against the state's Department of Children and Family Services because they opted out of the vitamin K shot for their newborn.
Vitamin K. Oh man, I guess the state's gonna say you best have your vitamins.
You know what's interesting is that I had to read this like a couple of times to go, wait a minute, what? Like it was really
It
strange.
doesn't
Like
seem real, does it?
it doesn't seem real. And so I thought this was really interesting. So apparently, I believe it's a class action suit, is what they're doing.
Yeah.
And apparently, there was 138 families that were actually being investigated by CPS. And out of the 138 families, apparently there were only seven that were found to have exhibited evidence of
And
medical
and
neglect.
they're being investigated for not giving their kids vitamin K.
They are literally being
So
investigated for not giving,
um
not having a vitamin K shot given to their
let's
newborn.
explain exactly what happens after your kid is born and some of the things that happen because this is where this stems from.
Okay, well, obviously, after a child is born, there's a certain amount of shots and different things that they do have
Yeah.
to receive. What's strange though is that um, I'm not really familiar with. And I don't know. Maybe it's just me, and maybe it's the state of Texas that we were living in. All of our children were born in Texas, but I don't remember there ever being a vitamin K shot, and
I think I remember something like that.
I don't remember that. If there was, I don't think our children have that. I don't know. It sounded strange, and this could just be mom brain for me. I don't know. But when I read this, I was like, I'm sorry, who's taking people's children away because they didn't get a vitamin K shot? So this is one of
Yeah.
the things that's being said. Um, what they're saying is that they're saying that newborns that didn't receive the vitamin K shot immediately after birth, that these are the families that are being investigated. And so it says even parents whose children were not seized complained of being investigated and harassed for months by DSFS with the threat of having their children put into state care or worse, adopted. The vitamin K shot has been recommended by the American Academy of Pediatrics and regularly administered to newborns since the 1960s for the purpose of preventing a rare bleeding disorder. But parents who choose not to have the shot given to their babies are allowed to fill out a form acknowledging their decision, which adds further confusion that these parents are being investigated and have actually having their children taken away because of it. And one of the things that was said by one of the parents being investigated is that they were floored because they're like, we're not even anti-vaccine. Our children are getting vaccinated. We literally opted out on a vitamin K shot. They're still their children are still getting vaccinated and they're being investigated over a vitamin. I'm telling y'all, I'm telling you, this is what it looks like when government comes in and says, we know how to take care of your kids better. This is the kind of stuff, the kind of wild stuff that you see go on in places like even California.
And
Like they just passed that legislation where they're literally forcing parents. Isn't that what that is? Where they're
yeah,
forcing parents
secret abortion.
to, no, I'm talking about where they're forcing parents to have their children vaccinated.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's
Yeah, I heard about
actually
that.
recent. We need to pull that story back up at some point and see where they are on that. But
Yeah.
this was just crazy to me. I was like,
Yeah. And
"What?"
think about this. I mean, think about how what's going on with these nurses and these doctors that the second a kid doesn't get a vitamin K shot, they're immediately calling CPS. I mean,
That's so extreme.
there's a couple of things that are happening. Either the nurse and the doctors on a power trip, or there's some kind of deal worked out with the vitamin K provider, and it's just a cash grab, And
Something.
it's probably for that rare disease, but they still got to get that cheddar. They can't have a bunch of parents not getting it and saying,
Lord.
"Look, a bunch of us didn't get it, so your kids don't have to get it either." And there you go.
I don't know. It's like it's one of those things where I'm looking at this and my first thought was I don't and I'm not gonna say that, we don't always know the entire story. Okay. And they did say that there were seven situations where they, you know, found medical neglect. But that's the other thing. What is medical neglect
Yeah,
according to the government?
because if this is being investigated for medical
It
neglect,
is.
then
Yes.
then what is that 7?
It,
Because I mean, that 7 could be,
it could be
oh,
anything.
well, maybe they didn't vaccinate on some other stuff
Well,
too,
maybe little
you
Jimmy
know?
fell down and skinned his knee, and maybe they didn't use the right brand of band-aids to
Yeah,
cover
exactly.
the wound. But I'm telling you again, this is that place. And please understand, we're not saying that, children that are being abused in any kind of way will just leave those families alone. We're not saying that. What we're saying is
This is
that
the opposite of
this is
that.
government. This is government. I mean, the epitome of government coming in and saying, we know better than you do. We're going to make this decision, and we're going to make it so extreme that if you don't simply, if you opt out of something as simple as a vitamin K shot, then that must be neglect. I'm always telling you guys this: be wary when government comes in and they begin to define words like medical neglect, words like living thing, words like that, okay? Words like insanity, because then that means they can control the definition of that word,
Yeah,
which means they can control who goes into that category, which means they can control your life. So this is a perfect example of that. So if we get new information, I'm actually kind of interested to follow this now to know
yeah,
what ends up happening, because this just seems so extreme. So if I do some digging and I find out anything new, we'll put it on here.
yeah.
So it's crazy. Crazy.